All right. Welcome to. Give me a second here as we're trying to connect this stream. Welcome to tonight's episode of Under the Sun, a study through the book of Ecclesiastes. We are in a little bit of a different setting here and using the computer camera and audio, which I'm sure won't be quite as quality as it has been in the past. But if you are here, please let us know. We would greatly appreciate that. And so hopefully, sometimes you never know. Hey, Eric, good to see you. I'm going to actually type it here in the comment sections. It's a little bit difficult because I have it right in front of me, and it's the camera I'm using. But I'm going to type it in here anyway. Let us know you are here. All right. Hey, Kathy from Tennessee. Glad to see you on here with us. And I'm going to type it here as well. Let's see here. Let us know you are here. Seems like both are working, so that's always good. You never know. Appreciate you letting me know. We're going to get started here again in just a minute, but glad you guys could join in. And again, let us know you're here. I see a couple people watching on Facebook, but haven't commented yet. Same thing on YouTube. And excited to get back into the book of Ecclesiastes here as well. We're going to do a few different things today with our beginning of service stuff, just a little bit different than we have done in the past. Hey, Anita, good to see you as well. If you're jumping on, let us know. We want to know. We want to hear from you. We want to say hello. We want to know who's joining in, who's commenting, and all of those things. And so love it whenever you guys let us know. That way we make sure that we're actually going live here and people can hear what is going on. But this is Wednesday Night Live. I am Pastor Edwin Lugo. Life Under the Sun, presented to you by Pioneer Baptist Church. We're going to have a good time as long as you interact with us. Daniel Tucker, hello. Great to see you as well. The Mitchells are here. Cassie's here. That's great to see that. I'm glad Cassie's here. She's just right downstairs, usually with the boys, as she usually is, and so that's always great to have her in here. Changing up the pre-Ecclesiastes things, kind of the fun aspect of it, but hopefully you can join in here with us for just a second. Added a new segment, and that is the segment, Would You Rather? Would you rather? I always have a great time with my family and my kids with the Would You Rathers, and so they're always fun to think about, and so I was looking for some interesting Would You Rathers, and I have one for you tonight. I would love to hear your answer rather. So here we go. Give it a little bit of thought. Let us know. Here is tonight's Would You Rather. Would you rather know the history of every object that you touch, or be able to communicate with animals? Would you rather know the history of every object you touch? Now that might seem like an awesome thing, but there might be some history that you don't want to know. I don't know, I'm just thinking. Or be able to communicate with animals. I'm not really sure about that one either. They're both kind of, I think, have the positives and negatives to it, so be interested to hear what you say. All right, Kristen Kelly jumps right in and definitely says the history of every object that she touches. Anybody want to give some reasoning behind your answers? So Kathy Hawkins does that. She said she would rather be able to communicate with animals. She'd love to know what they always. If you've ever owned a pet, you know what it's like. You fill in. You speak for your animals. You baby talk for your animals. And so it's kind of funny we fill in what we think they're thinking, but it would be really interesting to know what they're really thinking. All right, we got some more communicate with animals. The Claytons say that. Daniel brings up a good point. He says he would rather know the history of things he touches because he doesn't want to talk to his what if you ran into a chick and it's like, hey, you ate my cousin yesterday? That'd be kind of difficult to deal with. Let's see here. George says he'd rather know the history. He thinks it'd be a great help. I don't want to hear my cat say I'm hungry. Say he's hungry at 3 a.m. when he's meow, 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 meow. All right, Gabe says talk to animals. Eric says he would rather communicate with animals as long as you can turn it off. That's true. Like to know what they're thinking. Easy choice for me. Okay. So, yeah, you'd like a mute button on the animals. I understand that. Totally get that. So totally understand that. All right, think about it a little bit more. Maybe some of you are getting in here a little bit late, and you're just now seeing the question here of tonight's would you rather? Would you rather be able to know the history of every object you touch, or be able to communicate with animals? If you give an answer, let me know why you choose the answer that you choose. It's kind of interesting to hear and to see. Emily also says communicate with animals. I also understand, like, if you have animals, you want to be able to communicate clearly with them and be a lot easier, maybe. But I think both of them would be very, very, very interesting things to be able to do. So if you're hopping in and you just hear this, let us know. I'd love to hear it. We're just going to go with one more pre-service or pre-Ecclesiastes program thing, and that is, okay, so we got some more people jumping in here. The heart say the history, not as much to learn from animals. But how do we know that? How do we know we don't have anything to learn from animals? But history is history. Like, we know what's there. The Claytons say it would make it easier to understand them, so they could help them, and easier to work with them. But here is today's fact. I'm jumping all over the place right here. Fact of the day, all right? We have, for just a minute, we've eliminated the bestest. We've got tips and tricks. I keep reading these comments so they come in because they're too good. Emily says, while it'd be cool, oh, where'd it go? It went away. I don't know where it went. Emily had one here, and now it just went away. I don't know where it went. Just something about it, it would be cool. But if it pops back up, I will let you know. The fact of the day. Ready? Here we go. Today's fact of the day. And that is that strawberries actually contain more vitamin C than oranges. And obviously, a lot of times what happens is, during flu season or cold season, people will say, hey, be sure to eat some oranges, drink some orange juice, something like that, to make sure that you get some vitamin C in there and help you out. Well, strawberries actually contain more vitamin C than oranges. So, start popping those strawberries if you're able to, kind of stuff, and enjoy those. Have a good time with those. Enjoy. I know it'd be maybe easier to eat one big orange rather than like 5 or 6 or 7 strawberries, but just a little information for you tonight. All right. Do it heartily. The Steeds, Adam and Kathleen, jump in here and say they would rather know the history of objects. He says, I have zero desire to talk to a giraffe. But see, we just assume that there's nothing the giraffe could say that would be interesting, nothing that he would possibly know that would be of any interest or help to us. But because it's trapped in that brain, who knows? The mysteries of the universe could be contained therein. I actually don't know that, but it's kind of interesting to see. Anyway, those are the things for today. Again, if you're just jumping in, we were asking the would you rather. Would you rather be able to talk to animals, or would you rather be able to know the history of every object you touch? So that's what people are answering as well. And then the fact of the day, strawberries contain more vitamin C than oranges. But if you have a copy of God's Word, we're going to go back to Ecclesiastes chapter 5. Josiah once says he would love to talk to an ostrich. Kathy, the weather is not so bad. It's actually cool, but it looks like it's going to be nice and sunny. So hopefully we'll have some decent weather coming here over the next couple days. By the way, before I forget to say it, I might forget to say it on Sunday. I did forget to say it this past Sunday, is Time Change Sunday. And I know nowadays, most of the time, our phones take care of that, or whatever else. A lot of times it'll automatically adjust. But I did want to make mention of it before I forget, because it is Time Change Sunday this coming Sunday. I wanted to make you aware of that. Yes, it stinks. This is the one where we lose an hour of sleep. We jump forward, but we get some extra daytime. So that's nice. Yeah, Katie, eat some more strawberries. Love them. Delicious. Good stuff. All right, here we go. Ecclesiastes chapter 5. We got about 7 verses into it last week. We're going to jump back into it today. And really, when we ended the last time, we were talking about the idea of not robbing God. Don't rob God. And we talked about the idea that we shouldn't make promises with no intentions of keeping them, and we shouldn't make promises and then delay to keep them. And we talked a lot about that in the context of worship, and those kinds of things. And we talked about it in making when the Holy Spirit convicts our hearts. But we talked about that we should not make these promises to God and then fail to keep them. We shouldn't make promises to God and then delay to keep them. We should let our yea be yea and our nay be nay. That's right. There you go. Hearts, have somebody talk to those Galapagos turtles and find out what was really going on in that island. But here we go. Into Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 8 and 9. I'm going to read verses 8 and 9 because I'm asking you this question here. I want you to think about verses 8 and 9. Honestly, verses 8 and 9 of Ecclesiastes chapter 5 might be the most difficult to understand when you read them, to really grasp them. And so I know that's difficult, but I'm going to read them here, and I want you to read it. It says, "If thou see the oppression of the poor, and violent perverting of judgment and justice at the matter, for he that is higher than the highest regardeth, and there be higher than they." Verse 9, "Moreover, the profit of the earth is for all. The king himself is served by the field." And so the question again is what's the basic conclusion of verse 8 and 9? Now let me say this. Last week we talked about verses 1 through 7, and we said the conclusion was don't rob God, right? Don't rob God. With that in mind, don't rob God, what 8 through 9 ought to be. I'll give you a minute to think about it. You're welcome to put it in your own words. I gave you a little bit of a hint when I was talking about the fact that verses 1 through 7 are don't rob God. What could possibly the conclusion of verses 8 and 9 be when you read through some of those things? I'll give you just a minute to answer that and to think through that for just a minute as you read those, because they are probably using out of all of them. And so hang in there with us. All right, Kathy Hawkins says she lost us. Let us know if somebody else has. That way we can know for sure. Again, we're not 100% sure. All of our internet streaming, sometimes it bounces around. So let us know if we're still good on Facebook and YouTube. Hopefully next week we'll be able to get back to using the camera and everything, trying to get those things right. Obviously, many of you have stuck with us and know we've had some issues with that, trying to replace RAM. Okay, Kristen jumps in and says, don't be naive about corruption. And boy, is that true. And we're going to hit on that point here in just a second. The reality that Solomon sees again, and he's mentioned this before. He's gone through the courtroom and to the marketplace. He's gone in the roadside. He's gone to the palace. He's gone to the temple, and he actually returns back to the courthouse. And what does he see there again? He sees corruption, right? He sees awful corruption of people stealing from those that are in need with zero. If verses 1 through 7 were don't rob God, I would entitle verses 8 and 9 this way. I would entitle it this way. Don't rob others. Don't rob others. That's right. So the hearts talk about God sees all and provides for all. Don't ever forget that even though people that are corrupt might get away with something, do not be fooled. The Bible tells us that God is not mocked. He knows, he sees all of those things. The Bible actually tells us in these verses, it says this, it says, marvel not. Kristen said, don't be surprised. Another way, or don't be naive. I would say, don't be surprised when these things happen. Don't be surprised when these things happen. And I'm gonna stand here before you, and I know that all of us have been very frustrated with and very upset about what many of us would consider to be a corrupt government system, right? And that's what Solomon is saying. Solomon is seeing those people that are put in a position to rule over people, to make decisions for the people, and they are dealing unjustly, unfairly. What we would say is corrupt. And I think we all understand it is very difficult. It is very difficult to watch a corrupt government, and at times feel absolutely helpless about it. But I also think when we read through the Bible, when we look through the lens of all of Scripture, that the Bible makes it clear that the right response is not just to totally abandon even a corrupt government. It's the correct answer isn't to just totally abandon it. Now, you say, Pastor, you're saying that we just did all. But just because there's corruption doesn't mean we absolutely abandon a institution that God has set up. Now, obviously, the ideal is that government is both honest and efficient. And unfortunately, we live in a time where it appears that it's neither of those things. It is neither honest nor efficient. But I want to ask you this question because I want you to think about it, and I think it's an important thing for us as believers to think about. And here's the question I want us to consider tonight. If we don't abandon government, right? If we don't abandon it, what can we do? As believers, if we see that government is corrupt, and we see that it is hurting, it's not honest, it's not efficient, and the right answer is not to absolutely abandon it, to just drop it and go away forever. What are some things that we can do? What is the proper response? Because honestly, I began to wonder to myself, I just said don't rob others, and we're talking about people in government corruptly using their position to take advantage of people and situations. But do we not rob others by abandoning it rather than aiming to redeem it? And so we certainly have some things here that I think are right and helpful. George talks about praying, voting. The heart say, be salt and light. I think it's so important for us to shine the light of truth and be that salty, savor that is attractive to people, and they go, well, maybe I haven't thought about that. Maybe that's interesting. Let me think about that more. Kristen says, participate, vote, call your representatives when things are important to you or things stand out to you. And I understand, please don't get me wrong, I understand. Many times we act as if, everything is just shot and, this side or that side's taken over and oh well, there's nothing we can do. Well, if you have that attitude, then yeah, maybe there is nothing we can do. But I think there are so many things that we can do that we should be that salt and light. Unfortunately, Kathy, that seems to be the way that it goes. She says, "You aren't crooked when you come out," and that's so sad, right? That's so that shouldn't be the way that it is, and it makes us sad to think about that. Because I do think maybe there are times where people go in thinking, I'm going to change this system. I'm going to be salt and light in this system, and then they they get there and they go, oh, this is the way it works, and it's really, really difficult for people to do that. It's not an easy thing. But I also be involved beyond just voting and praying and calling your representative. I think there should be good Christians who represent us in government. I think there are many ways for us to be involved in it. Now, I want us to. I don't want to sit on this topic for too long because really I want to focus on the rest of the chapter in verses 10 through 20. And we've looked at this idea of don't rob God, right? In the temple, don't rob God. In the government square, don't rob others. But I want to talk about this, and this may sound when I was going through this, I admit this can sound almost humanistic, self-centered, self-help. But I think once we get into it, you'll see the biblical backing behind what I'm saying here, and that is, don't rob yourself. Don't rob yourself. Now, verses 10 through 20, Solomon deals with some myths about wealth, about money. And I want us to, I don't think, I'm not going to read through all of them, but maybe you want to take a real quick look through verses 10 through 20 tonight. Just kind of glance through them. And I want to ask you a couple of questions. One of them are things that you think people are ultimately trying to get out of life. And while you do that, I do have a couple other notes that I'm just looking back at, kind of go along with Kathy's statement there. I don't remember who it is, but somebody one time said, power tends to corrupt. Power corrupts absolutely. And man, that's a tough statement, but it seems oftentimes to be very true. But I want you to maybe peruse through, look at verses 10 through 20 of the book of Ecclesiastes, and what we're going to look at those here in just a second. And really, there's two questions I want you to think about. What are some things you think people are ultimately looking to get out of life? And then the second one is this: what myths do Solomon, or do you see, I guess just to say, do you see Solomon take on in verses 10 through 20? He shares some myths about wealth, about money, in verses 10 through 20. And I'm going to share some specifically with you. But maybe read through, skim through. I'm going to buy you some time here. Read through those verses there. Look over them. I think some of them become very obvious. And maybe you'll word it differently than I do. But just look through them. He deals with the connection between happiness and money. That's right. You're saying that's what people look for in life. Happiness. How do I be happy? Yes. Deals exactly with that. He talks about the real connection between happiness and money. And those are definitely things that people are looking for in life. And they see a connection. The world sees a connection between those things. And Solomon deals with them whenever we look at the book of Ecclesiastes, especially verses 10 through 20. All right, we're going to take them one by one. We're just going to kind of walk through these verses a little bit, and we're going to see them together. So verse 10 says this: He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. This is also vanity. I'm going to read it one more time. He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. That also is vanity. Here's myth number one. The very Solomon deals with is this one: money brings satisfaction. There's so many people that live under this myth that if I just had some more money, I would be completely satisfied. Everything in life would fall into place. There would be no more issues. And what ends up happening, when people tie their satisfaction to the amount of money they have, money becomes an idol. and that's what they pursue. They love it, and they sacrifice for it, and they'll get it, and they'll guard it with everything that they have. But Solomon says here, listen, you can get more of it, and it'll never satisfy you. You can get abundance, and you'll never be happy. He's looking at these people and says, it is a myth that money brings satisfaction. But here's a question, and that we need to have an answer for as believers. I want you to answer this. I'm going to wait for you to answer this. Ready? Here we go. If not wealth, then what? If people are looking for satisfaction, okay, and Solomon is telling us wealth doesn't give that to you. And by the way, it's not just dollar bills in hand. We can also extrapolate that out to the things that money can buy, right? And there's a lot of stuff that money can buy. And Solomon is clearly communicating to them, this is a myth. There is a myth out there that money equals satisfaction. And the world believes that, and the world has for a long time believed that, and they've pursued it and pursued it and pursued it and pursued it and pursued it, yet people still struggle to find ultimate satisfaction in their life. And so the world begs the question, and I'm asking it on their behalf because I think it's important for believers that to answer that. If not money, what? Boy, I tell you what, Kristen, they got that right? Sometimes they say some really stupid things in songs, but I can't get no satisfaction, though I try and I try and I try. I honestly remember, is that the Rolling Stones? I really don't remember who that is. I get some of those ones mixed up, but that's very true. And I think that they're in that song, they're like, man, I'm aiming for satisfaction. I can't get it no matter how I try. Kathy says, what wealth puts dependence on themselves, right? How to get it, how to keep it. And boy, is that a dangerous proposition, right? But the question is, if not wealth, then what? What is it? So, the Claytons bring up a good point, and that is, our attitude toward what you have, right? We've talked about this before. The idea of contentment is so important, and Paul speaks to that time and time again. That godliness with contentment is great gain. Paul goes on and says, I have learned in whatsoever state I am therewith to be content. That was such an important Bible truth for us to think about, for us to deal with, right? Reality that we should never lose sight of. All right, listen to me, believer. Listen to me, anybody who's on here. This is something we cannot lose sight of. Okay, the human heart. Listen to me. Your heart, my heart. The human heart was made to be satisfied by God. The human was made to be satisfied by God. And everything else that somebody uses in life to try to satisfy themselves is an idol that they set on the throne of their heart that only belongs to God. And we have to find ways to communicate that to a lost and dying world who is longing for some sort of satisfaction, but not realizing for eternity, and that their human heart is missing satisfaction, but that their human heart was made to be satisfied by God. You know what? I think we can communicate that to everybody in life, and do it truthfully, and do it carefully. Also, do it kindly. When we see people in those situations, just tell them, I believe we all have an emptiness in our heart, and our hearts were made to be satisfied by God. And that is the reality. There is another myth. Verse 11. Let's read verse 11 together. Verse 11 says, verse 11 of Ecclesiastes chapter 5 says this: Look at verse 11, see if you can see what myth Solomon is speaking to here. He says, when goods increase, they are increased that eat them. And what good is there to the owner thereof, saying, the beholding of them with their eyes? I'm not sure if Kathy Hawkins was working ahead of us, but she actually kind of hit it a little ahead of time, where she says the more you have, and that's part of it. Anybody else want to add to Ecclesiastes chapter 5 and verse 11? What is the myth, the falsehood that people are believing that Solomon is trying to deal with here? What's the myth? Read verse 11 again for just a second. Let's see if people chime in here. I'll tell you. Number 2. Myth number 1 was that wealth satisfies, right? Myth number 2 is this: money solves every problem. There's a myth out there that money solves every problem. And Solomon says, guys, let me tell you something. I've been there before, and money does not solve all of your problems. As a matter of fact, he says this. He says, it actually increases your problems. It increases them. And so I want you to think about this question too, right? Let me ask this question for just a second, because some people may not think this is true. What problems can be increased by wealth? Think about this for a second, because I think this is important. For sometimes we can tell people, hey, let me tell you some problems that adding wealth actually brings. So think about this for a second, and I want, again, in order for this to work, I need some of your feedback here. But what are some ways that we see wealth actually increase problems? Eric, you hit one of them on the head for sure, man. Taxes, right? I even think about our missionaries this past buying their house and then wanting to turn around and sell it 9 months later, and they're told not to do it because if they sell their house and make this money, there's going to be capital gains tax that they're going to have to pay on top of other stuff. And it's like, man, I'm just trying to buy and sell a house here. Do it heartily. The Steeds mentioned relationships broken because they want what you have, and that's actually the problem that Solomon speaks to. That's the problem that Solomon speaks to. He says, it's really interesting that all of a sudden we gain this money and like all these relatives come out of the woodwork. I was having this conversation with Andrew McLeod a couple of months ago, and we were talking about professional athletes and how important it is for them to spend some money on a financial advisor or something like that, because oftentimes what happens is they start making these millions, and then this cousin and that uncle and this aunt and this third cousin twice removed on my mother's side shows up, and they become clingers on, and they become leeches and those kinds of things, and all of a sudden they're drained of all their money because all of these people just want a little piece of the pie, and all of these people just started coming out of the woodwork, and it becomes difficult to say no. The hearts talk about there's more responsibility, there's more stress, that God will require more of us because his desire is for us to be good stewards of that to it as well. That people will want things from you, and people will be jealous of you. They say that money causes us to be more afraid of what we might. Talks about you may depend less on God with your money. It's very true. You'll start to depend more on your money than on God. Kathy Hawkins says they worry about someone stealing it. They worry about it becoming obsolete, or all of these kinds of things. I mean, people all of a sudden think, if I just have more money, all of my problems will go away, and we've in a matter of minutes mentioned that's not true. We've mentioned multiple reasons why that is not true. It is not true, and Solomon says it's not true, guys. Having more money isn't going to solve all your problems. Okay? Now, verse 12. Let's look at verse 12 and think about this for a second. Okay, he says, the sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eat little or much. But the abundance of the rich will not suffer him to sleep. Okay? I'm going to read it again. The sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eat little or much. But the abundance of the rich will not suffer him to sleep. What myth do you think Solomon is dealing with here? I mean, look at this. The sleep of a laboring man is sweet. You ever worked, and I mean, just like a dog? I mean, hard labor for a long pillow, and you just sleep you just sleep like no other, because you've worked yourself tired. Like, you've done an honest, hard day's work, man, and you're just like, it's gonna feel so good to sleep, right? Here he says, the abundance of riches will not suffer him to sleep. Here's myth number 3. Myth number 3 is that money brings peace of mind. There's so many people that think, if I just have more money, everything will be all right. I'll have peace of mind about things. We've already discussed some of these things where with more responsibilities, more stress, worry about people taking it, becoming obsolete, wearing out, possible broken relationships. The reality is, more money does not calm or quiet your nerves. Calm or quiet your nerves. As a matter of fact, Solomon says, I've observed that the common laborer sleeps better than the rich man. I was reading a story about John D. Rockefeller, who at the age of 53 became the only billionaire in America at that time. It was said at that time that John D. was making over or right at $1 million a day. But they also said during that time, where he became America's first and only billionaire at that time, making $1 million a day, it was the sickest he ever was in his life. He said the only thing that he could eat at that time was crackers and milk. That was it. The only thing he could eat. Couldn't hold things down, couldn't sleep, absolutely miserable. His health was awful. They did not think he was going to live much longer at the age of 53. Because of the money he had. Did not bring him peace of mind. You want to know when John D. Rockefeller's health began to improve? It actually, when John D. Rockefeller started giving his money away. I'm just telling you. Started to be charitable with his money. And I think he lived to like the age of, I could be wrong, I admit, I may be misspeaking here, I don't have it written in front of me, but I thought he lived to like the age of 86 or 96. Even though at 53 they thought he was going to die. Yeah, Katie, you're welcome. I almost said it, but I know that have a couple babies currently that Katie said, good job for not saying sleep like a baby, because they actually don't sleep really good. Not sure who came up with that. So yeah, I hesitated on saying that because I know there's a couple people with babies that may not be sleeping that well right now. Yeah, that's true. All right, myth number 4. Okay, here we go. Verses 13 through 17. Myth number, which I have seen under the sun. Namely, riches kept for the owner thereof to their hurts. But those riches perish by evil travail. And he begetteth a son. As he came forth of his mother's womb, naked shall he return to go as he came. And shall take nothing of his labor, which he may carry away in his hand. And this also is sore evil, that in all points as he came. And what profit hath he that laboureth for the wind? All his days also he eateth in darkness, and he hath much sorrow and wrath with sickness. Here's the 4th myth that he deals with. It's this: that money provides security. There you go. Okay, thank you, Adam and Kathleen. He lived to be 97. My first thought was 96, but I went, wow, that's a long time. And then I thought maybe it was just 86. I thought it was 96, but 97 is it. There you go. The 4th myth that Solomon deals here with, though, is that money security. And it looks like he's dealing with a few different people here. There's one person that becomes a miser, almost like Ebenezer Scrooge, and just holds on to all of his money. There's another one who makes bad financial decisions and lives with regret and lives defeated. And he's telling these people, hey, money doesn't provide you any security. It could be gone in a moment. We have seen this play out already in our day and age with how unstable. I'm about to sneeze. Here we go again. I don't know what it is about these things. It must be the light. I know sometimes light makes you sneeze. It's the light maybe that's shining right in my eyes, but it does not provide security. Okay. Now, some people may look at these myths that we've just talked about, right? That that wealth would satisfy, or that wealth solves every problem, or that wealth brings peace of mind, or that wealth brings security. At all, Solomon must think money's bad, and I don't want you to mistake what Solomon is saying here. Solomon is not saying that money is good or bad. All he's doing is giving warnings. He's just sounding some warnings about myths that people had in his day. And by the way, the human heart, listen, this was written thousands of years ago. The human heart still believes these myths today. And the reality is, the only thing that will satisfy, the only thing that will solve problems, the only things that will give security, the only thing that will give the peace of mind is God. That's what this world really, really needs. Now, we're going to close by reading verses 18 through 20. And I want you to share with me here, as we read, what is the overriding idea of verses 18 through 20 as we close out this chapter? Here we go. Ready? There is a sore evil. I'm sorry, that's not the one I want. I've already read those. Oh man, I don't have 18 through 20. I'm going to read them to you out loud. Ready? Here goes. Behold, that which I have seen, it is good and comely for one to eat and to drink, and to enjoy the good of all his labor that he taketh under the sun all the days of his life, which God giveth him. For it is his portion. Every man also to whom God hath given riches and wealth, and hath given him power to eat thereof, and to take his portion, and to rejoice in his labor, this is a gift from God. For he shall not much remember the days of his life, because God answereth him in the joy of his heart. Here before we close tonight is, what is the overriding idea of these verses? Terry Cross, I appreciate Terry jumping in here. He says, only Jesus can satisfy your soul, and only he can change your heart and make you whole. They give you peace you never knew, sweet love and joy in heaven too, for only Jesus can satisfy your soul. I'm taking it that is either one, a song, or two, a poem, or both. And as a very truth, such a simple truth, but it's a truth that would reverberate in the days of Solomon and Ecclesiastes and in the days of 2021, because the myths and the things, I'm saying it again, that Solomon sees people dealing with then are the same ones we see people dealing with today. They believe that if they just had a little bit more, that they can have security, and they can have a peace of mind, and they can have satisfaction, and they can have all of these things, when in reality it is a relationship with God through Jesus Christ, his Son, that gives us those things the world is actually looking for. Solomon comes and he writes out verses 18 through 20 here that I just read, and I asked the question, what is the overriding theme? Eric hits it. Satisfaction and peace are gifts from God. You say, now, wait a second. Haven't we already heard that? Yeah. Solomon has already said that. At least we'll say it again in the book of Ecclesiastes. And I think we need to see it, importantly, as an overriding theme in the book of Ecclesiastes. I think it's important for us to note, I wrote it this way, I'll put it here on the screen, that we are to labor faithfully and enjoy the good things as a gift from a gracious God. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Terry, for letting me know it was a chorus to a song. All right. But it's important for us to labor faithfully. We work, honest day's labor, and then enjoy what God does give you as a gift from a very gracious God. Now, I also want us to notice this as well. I'm going to read verses 18 and 19 again. Behold, that which I have seen, it is good and comely for one to eat and to drink, and then his labor that he taketh under the sun all the days of his life which God giveth him, for it is his portion. Now, notice verse 19. Every man also to whom God hath given riches and wealth, hath given him power to eat thereof, and to take his portion, and, notice this, and to rejoice in his labor. Gift from God. Can I tell you something? The ability to enjoy the gifts from God are also a gift from God. Not everybody has the ability to do that. Do you realize we live in a world where people struggle to give thanks and enjoy the good things that God has given them? Because they think that the next thing will be what satisfies their heart. They're missing that relationship with God. And he even says, and to rejoice in his labor. This is a gift from God. Not just the ability to enjoy, not just the ability to have those good things, but the ability to be thankful for them, the ability to enjoy them, the ability to be content in them, which we talked about before. That is also an amazing gift from God. And we never want to forget that. Now, as we close tonight, when we turn the chapter to chapter 6, Solomon is not back. He's going to talk more about people who have wealth and cannot enjoy it. And I think there's some important lessons for us to learn in that. One of the things that I do think that I want to talk about here in verse 20. Look at verse 20 as we close out. Chapter 5. He says, "For he shall not much remember the days of his life, because God answereth him in the joy of his heart." Can I tell you something? The time to start storing memories is now. So many people especially people who are just caught up with making the next dollar, with having more money and thinking those things satisfy them, so many of them think about, how many more days left do I have to make money? How many more days do I have left to do this? How many more days do I have left to do that? And they miss the gift of God today. They miss the joy of today. The time to start storing memories of God's goodness and God's action that God gives into our life is now. Enjoy now. Not humanistically. Okay, but be content in and see the graciousness of God to you now. Enjoy the gifts of God now. I hate to think about so many people that missed out on raising their children. They missed out on cultivating a godly marriage. They missed out on the Lord and enjoying all those gifts from the Lord because they were pursuing something else. They missed enjoying and savoring the now because they were chasing after something else under the sun rather than above it, where the Lord is. So I want to encourage you to do that. And next week we're going to come back together, look at Ecclesiastes again, and look at verse 6, and he's going to talk again about people who have wealth but can't enjoy it. And I hope that isn't you. I hope that isn't me. Here's the thing. I know that God has blessed many of you in great ways, financially even. Again, Solomon's not saying that's good or that's bad. That's God's. I mean, I guess you could look at it as God's gracious gift to you to steward properly. But we are not promised tomorrow. Is exactly right, Fred Clayton. The Heart on Sunday, because they found us online. We can be found easier if you subscribe and hit the like button early every time. Amen to that. If you haven't done it lately, every time you hop on here, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, whether it's on Facebook. There are all sorts of algorithms out there and I appreciate you bringing that up, Hearts, that end up putting things in front of people's faces because of these algorithms. I was glad to hear that somebody found us online just Googling us, because we used to be high on the Google search list, and then when we adjusted our website address from Pioneer Wilsonville to pioneerbaptist.church, because we weren't in Wilsonville proper anymore at the time, that changed. We kind of disappeared from that Google search, and I had to do some work on the back end, analytics-wise, to try to move us back up. So I was glad that people were able to find us. But he is exactly right, because all of these things are interwoven and interconnected. Please share, subscribe, like. It is a huge, huge help. And I appreciate you guys. So many of you guys tuning in every week and participating. I hope it's been a help to you as it has been to me. I hope it just gives you a little bit of something to put in your tool bag throughout the week to remind yourself of how good of a share these truths with people that we run into that may be looking for some sort of peace of mind, some sort of satisfaction, some sort of security in this world that God can provide. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday for Missions Month. Excited to have the Steeds with us. They got into town today. But until we meet next time, keep looking up. And we'll see you guys on Sunday, and excited to worship the Lord together with all of you. Have a great rest of the evening and a great rest of the week.